Hello my friends, hello, good morning, welcome back to the channel. I haven't made my Diet Coke yet because I told myself I had to finish this water before I had Diet Coke, so I'm gonna hurry and finish this. Oh my gosh, it's almost gone. And then make a soda, and we'll head into the studio and get ready to work, and I will update you on what I'm planned to read in this week's vlog. Thanks for being here, by the way. I'm so grateful to have you.
To a blessed collisions to frozen time. Spirit drinkers Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, the world don't make a sound. Clock won't turn around. Ooh, you turn around. 2,000 little fires. And ooh, your circle is spreading around from miles. Slowing things down when I wanted to race. Catching up again when it's time to chase. Feels like we're playing space. You always find a way to make up, right?
Hello my friends, hello. Welcome back to my channel. How is everybody doing? Oh hi, yes, hello. I have both dogs. This is Wanda right here. They look so fluffy and they're about the same heights now that you can't really tell them apart when they're fluffy. You can, I can. But sometimes if I'm a little further away, I'm like, which one is that? And then they do something and I'm like, oh, that's Wanda, that's Kazi. They're bumping into me as they're playing. But hello, happy good morning. Welcome back to the vlog. It's been a while since I've vlogged and I'm excited about this. So this is kind of going to be a weekly vlog. I'm not sure. I want to for sure include 2 books. Excuse me, children. Children. I want to for sure include 2 books, and I'm not... Stop. This is why I don't often film when they're both in here. But I for sure want to do Wild Eyes, which just released today. Today is Tuesday. Wild Eyes just came out today by Elsie Silver. I've been very much looking forward to this book, and I am excited because I don't know a thing of what this is about. I know who the hero is. I believe it's the heroine's brother from book 1. I believe it's his book, but I don't know anything else about the romance, like, at all. I don't know the plot, I don't know the tropes, I don't know nothing, and I'm so thrilled about that. I'm very excited. So I feel like I can probably just hopefully get into this with basically no expectations, and other than what I already know, and goodness. Oh my gosh, apologies, get down. Get 2 giant dogs, they said it would be fun. Who said that? I said that. Okay, I'm so sorry for the chaos, but I'm excited to read Wild Love, and then I think, I'm not entirely sure what the next book that I pick will be, because what I want to do is, you know, since I started Patreon, which I'm very excited about, I love my patrons so much, it's so fun over there, but I have kind of given myself some assigned reading because of that. Not necessarily just the patron, oh boy, she got mad, but because of my Fabled Book Club too. So there is a patron book that I need to read that they voted on for me to read, which is The Tempest of Tea. Children, stop. Which I may do next, or I might do the historical romance for my Fabled Book Club, which is The Making of a Highlander, which would be a reread for me. So I'm not sure. Those are the 2 that I'm thinking I'm going to include. I mean, those are my 2 options for what I would go with next after I finish Wild Eyes. Did I call it Wild Love? Oh my gosh, I should just start this over, but I'm not gonna, because who's got time for that, right? I have so much work to do today. I have so many sculptures to get done and shipped out. So, yeah, this was just me saying hello, hi, welcome to the vlog. Wild Eyes first, contemporary romance, Elsie Silver, love her. pretty much. I like a lot of hers. Some of hers I don't like at all. And then And then I may go in the direction of either a historical or a contemporary romance. So, and then if I finish a book on my Kindle, I'll also include that, but I'm not sure. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll just see how quickly I can read and how much I have to say, but that's the plan. That's the plan so far. So I will come back. I'm going to start Wild Eyes right now. I'll come back with my first impressions in a little bit. Oh my goodness. And hopefully we will be in a quieter location. I'll see y'all soon. Hello friends. Okay, so I'm about a third of the way through Wild Eyes, and I am really liking it. It is very, like, the thing about Elsie's books, and I feel like this is really apparent to me right now because I just came off of finishing Oathbringer and The Goblin Emperor, and I'm also I'm also currently reading The Wraith King by Juliette Cross, and all of those books are very long. Like, Oathbringer is super long, but they're very sort of, to varying degrees, they're sort of slow to build up to what's happening. And I feel like this book, while I wouldn't call this a fast burn romance at all, it's still moving a lot quicker than I am used to based on what I've been reading recently, you know? And even I would say, I also just finished The Finest Print by Aaron Langston. You know, I feel like I've had a string of books that have kind of been slow building to get to the meat, like to get into the real reason why we're here, you know? And so I feel like, I'm not sure if I'm explaining this right. I'm like kind of kneeling on the floor and I'm getting a Charlie horse in my foot. So I feel like I'm not 100% have hair in my face as well. Oh my gosh, I am so professional. But so I'm liking it. I am liking it a lot. I think I've got a lot of good things to say about it, but that is something that I'm definitely noticing, and I feel like it's especially noticeable because of the books that I've been reading. And truthfully, that's my preference for storytelling. Usually, most of the time. Sometimes it can feel a little bit fatiguing. Like if I've just been reading a lot of long stuff, sometimes it's just nice to pick up a book that's going to finish quickly, which is exactly why I picked this. I picked this up and I put it on 2x speed, which is the audio speed that I feel really comfortable listening to right now. And it was like going to be done in 4 hours, and I was like, holy cow, like that's really fast, you know, compared to some of the audiobooks that I've been listening to. So I really do like the whole concept of this. So we have our heroine, who is a very famous musician, like a pop star type of thing, I think. And she hasn't had a picture-perfect life. You know, it's clear that she's got some trauma with her parents and some things that haven't been disclosed at this time. And just some trauma just from being a famous person and having to live in that way. There was one scene in particular where the hero, West, walks... Okay, let me just get to the gist of the plot. So West is our hero. Our heroine somehow ends up in this area because of the record company from the hero from the previous book. I'm assuming she's under his label. I didn't really pay that too close attention to that exactly when I was listening to that part. And so she needs a place to stay for a while. So that she ends up staying in the place where the heroine from book 1 lived until, you know, so it's her brother's like ranch house, I guess, essentially. So the brother's a horse trainer. They have a really, really great first meeting. I really loved their meet cute. I thought it was fantastic. I really thought that set up the romance really well. I thought it was a really good introduction to the characters. I thought it was unique without being completely over the top. It was something that I've never read before when, you know, we've got this famous person trying to get a social media video of a grizzly bear and her cubs, and the hero is like, are you crazy? Get away from them. So that was really fun and interesting, and I liked that a lot. And I think it really established the tone of the book, which was intrigue, and it also showed West's like good nature. Like, he has such a good nature with her. And, you know, maybe that is the result of him being a father to young kids. Whatever it is, he is very good-natured, and I like that about him a lot. So, inevitably, they end up in forced proximity, right? So when they first have that meeting with the bear, he doesn't know that she's going to be staying in that little, like, ranch house. So they meet again, and they just continue to circle one another. So at this point, there is very much an established chemistry, an established attraction, and also, they're starting to get to know each other a little bit better than just surface level, you know? Like, she just revealed to him some things she's going through about her parents, and, you know, he's been talking about what happened with his ex-wife and why they split up. And so they're starting to share, they're starting to have some vulnerability with each other. I think that the heroine specifically is really winning me over here. I think she's doing a really good job of showing her to be very vulnerable in a way that makes you feel almost protective of her. You know, I think it can be hard for a lot of readers to get on board with a very wealthy, a very famous person who seemingly doesn't have any problems, right? To feel sympathetic for them because of the problems that they have that are associated with their fame and their wealth. And even though that is definitely the gist of what's happening here, I think Elsie is delivering that information in a way that makes it feel relatable and that makes it feel real. And, you know, the scene I was talking about just a second ago, one of the ways she does that is through that one scene early on in the beginning when the heroine is like taking a selfie and she's thinking about her image, and West is watching her take this selfie, and he can see, you know, it's such a beautiful scene, I thought, because he sees her like put on a mask to take the selfie, and then he sees her kind of when she sheds that and who she actually is, and he sees all these varying emotions in that moment when and he realizes like her entire life is a performance. And obviously we know that about famous people, but I do feel like even with social media influencers, I think it can be hard for us to understand that what we're seeing is not actually reality. That's not actually that person, you know? Even with something like this reading vlog, which, I mean, I really try my best to be on it. Not even just honest, like I try my best to be real, right? But I definitely edit stuff out that I don't want on the internet forever, you know? Like, if I catch it, and I don't know. So she has that on another level, right? Her image is everything. And I just found that to be a really beautiful moment, and also a really interesting look at how that may affect her and the trauma and baggage that that's giving her. So I'm very excited to see them come closer together, because at this point in the book, they're just kind of circling each other flirtatiously, and they're just barely beginning to go underneath the surface and talk about like real stuff. So I'm excited. I am liking it a lot. It's going by really quick. And yeah, so those are my first thoughts. Overall, really enjoying it. I'll let you know what happens next. I may not even update you until I finish it because it's so short. We'll see.
Staring out the window on a cloudy morning, trying to lick our wounds while the tea is swarming. Sometimes it's like a bird that's never shipped out. Sometimes you go around and I never run the rail. This week has been a mess, but I'm gonna tell you, we're a bit at work, gonna make it brand new. We're gonna plot a way for a comeback. We all need some time, and I promise you that. I promise you that. I promise you that. I know this can take a while, but it's gonna be alright, girl. And if it won't be today, I'm the shoulder you can cry on. So cry if you wanna cry.
Hello, my friends. Hello. I feel like I'm very close to the camera today. Hello. Today has been a day. Today has been quite a day. I don't even want to get into it. I just had doctor appointments and everything, and bleh. So, but on the bright side, I finished Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. So maybe because I said on the bright side, you can tell that I freaking loved this. I really, really did. I was very pleasantly surprised at how much I loved this. This, to me, feels like everything that I love about Elsie Silver done pretty much perfect, honestly. I loved the chemistry. I loved their connection. I loved the emotional development in this. I loved the flirtatiousness. I loved the banter. I loved the kids. I loved the found family. I loved the setting. I loved that he's a horse trainer. There's so much to love about this book. There is so much to love about this book. And I did. I loved it. I originally... I originally was going to give it 5 stars, which is still like solid. I'm obviously 5 stars is amazing, right? Because I didn't entirely love elements of the third act breakup, which I don't want to go in, not third act breakup, the third act conflict, but I don't want to go into details because it's spoiler. And I still have a few like reservations about it, but the way that it wrapped up after that overwhelmed the negatives that I felt about it. So I did give this 6 stars. I had a great time reading it. I kind of just burned through it, listened to this in less than a day, which is very, very fast for me. So I had a great time. I loved it. I thought it was great. So I especially liked, as the romance continued to develop, we started to see, I was talking in my last clip about how you could see these layers of vulnerability between the two of them sort of beginning to exchange, and that continued throughout the whole book. And even though there were moments, small, slight moments, where one or the other felt like, I'm not going to push to have this person in my life because I feel like maybe I wouldn't be a good addition to the life, to their life. Sort of that self-sacrificing white fanging effect, essentially. It wasn't ever full-blown white fang, because as soon as that was, like, imagined, then, they weren't so in deep at that point that their love was, like, undeniable. It was still sort of in the early stages where you could see they had a lot of feelings for each other, and if they just took that next step, they would fall hard and they would fall in love. And I thought that was interesting because you could see both of them sort of weighing the pros and cons of what that might do to their life, and not only just their life, but the lives of the children that are involved. And I really did enjoy how so much of the actions that these two took really had a lot to say about the love and respect that both of them had for his children. And I think that if you're going to have kids in a book, you have to have that element in there. So I feel like the build-up in this relationship, the build-up towards falling in love in here was so beautifully done. Just enough throughout the whole thing that it never felt insta-love, it never felt insta-lust. There was always this big attraction between the two of them. And I did really enjoy seeing that develop and push their feelings even further to the next level. But it was developed in just the right way for my taste, that it never felt like we just went 0 to 60 overnight. It felt like real, true progress. And I think that is something that I really love about Elsie's books, is that largely the ones that I love of her books. So, like, I love Heartless. I really like Flawless. I really liked Wild Love. I liked a couple in her Gold Rush Ranch series that I read. I really liked those. All of those to me feel very much like a very realistic type of falling in love, where it doesn't just feel like lust-based or attraction-based or chemistry-based. I feel like there has to be that other element in there, and that's an element that for me personally, you may feel differently, was missing from a few of her other books that I really didn't like, and I felt like it was here full force, and I loved it so much. So I really, really loved the way that these two fell in love. I thought it was beautiful, and I loved getting to see it. I also really liked, this book I think does something else that's interesting that I've noticed in Elsie's past few books, is that she takes this concept of a very selfless love, and most specifically we're seeing that from the heroine's point of view, her thoughts about how West loves her, and the way that she sees his love for her is really how he is continuously doing things that are going to help her live her dreams and help her shine, and are going to help her be an independent whole person in a way that's very selfless. Like, he's not out here trying to control her. He's not trying to force her to do something. He's not trying to take all of her responsibilities away and do them for her. Like, it's a very beautiful and true love, while he still is very protective and very swoony, and, he is going to defend his woman and his family. Like, I love that about him. So, I mean, he was basically a perfect hero, but he also wasn't so perfect that he didn't have flaws, because he did, and they were very endearing. So I truly, truly loved this. There was a quote. Well, of course I didn't mark it, but there was a quote in here. I just tried to find it because I was reading this on my Kindle for a little while last night, but there was a quote in here where she's talking about how he loves her in a way that allows her to be her own self, to be who she truly is for the first time in her life, because her parents have kind of managed her so harshly with her music career for their own benefit to get the money. There really hasn't been anybody in her life who has loved her for who she is, without saying that she has to fit into this certain box or that certain box, and also sort of essentially giving her wings to fly, you know? So I feel like he did that for her, and it was so beautifully done here. And I've seen that in a few of Elsie's, well, at least I remember seeing this in Wild Love too. And I really like how there's this whole theme of agency for each other's choices, you know, because the heroine in this book, Skylar, she doesn't want to take his choices away from him. She doesn't want to choose for him. She doesn't want to force him into a situation with her that he might not want, you know? And I just love that. I love the respect that they had for each other. And I just loved how tender and fun. This was just beautiful. I loved it. So I gave it 6 stars, and I thought it was a great time. I had a great time with it. So I'm very curious to see what the general consensus is, because typically I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. So if everybody else loves this, I would think that's great. If everybody doesn't love it, I still love it. I thought it was beautiful. One of my favorite romances ever. And yeah, I just had the best time. I just had the best time reading that. So now what I'm going to read is, I think I decided to go with The Making of a Highlander by Elisa Braden. So this is the book that we voted on in my Fable book club. It is a free book club app you can join. There are tons of different book clubs on there, but this one that I run is a historical romance one. And so we have the first one in Elisa Braden's Highland Magic series. I can't remember the series name. But this is a reread for me. I read this once, I think 3 years ago this fall is when I first read this book. And I remember really enjoying it. I went to check on Goodreads because I was thinking I gave this book 4 stars, because in my head, this is a 4-star book, but I gave it 5 stars. So I'm not sure if it really was a 5-star or if I felt a little bit of peer pressure or what, because when I think about this book, I enjoyed it, but it's not my favorite in the series. But I feel like this is a series that you probably need to read in order. I really like book 2 and 3. I haven't read book 4 yet, but I want to. So this is a Highland romance. It's an indie author, and it's basically, we have a Scottish heroine who is going to team up with an English gentleman who has come to play like the Scottish games, the Scottish trials, but he doesn't know how to do it. So she's going to teach him how to be a Scotsman, a Highlander, I guess, basically. There is an element of magic to this book, and a little bit of like whimsy and sort of magical things that are happening here, because there is like a ghost boy that she can see who kind of like she follows and everything like that, and follows her. So I've just barely started it. I'm only on the first chapter, so that's the one that I'm going to go with next. I did also finish The Wraith King by Juliette Cross. I finished my arc of that, but this clip is already 10 minutes long. I've got to go do some other things, so I will review that for you in a separate clip, and then I will probably come back and talk about the Making of a Highlander. So yeah, that's it. I'm so thrilled I loved Elsie's book. I thought it was fantastic. I'm going to go continue reading, and I will update you when I have more to say. Hello, my friends. All right. Well, I was going to update you when I was about halfway through The Making of a Highlander, and I just finished it. I've forgotten it was such a quick read. Like, I just blew through that book in like a day. Like, look at me go. I'm happy about that. I read Wild Love, and I read The Making of a Highlander, like, back to back really quickly. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and then I will review The Wraith King at the end. So, you know, this was an experience up to this point for reading my books for the Fable Book Club, which are historical romances that I have known and loved. Up to this point, I have loved all of them again, just as much or more than when I originally read those historical romances. So the first one we read was Wicked and the Wallflower. Loved that one even more, bumped it up to 6 stars. I've read that one multiple times. And then we did again The Magic by Lisa Kleypas. Loved that one just as much. Beautiful 5-star romance. And then last month we read My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid. Abso-friggin-lutely adored that. Maybe loved that one even more too. 5-star romance. So this one, I have to say, and I'm really disappointed to say this, I did not love this as much as I remember loving it. And that makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. Because I feel like I really, really enjoyed this book. I feel like, I mean, I did not like this as much as the rest of the series, or when I first read it. I feel like I read this in 2021. And 2021 was kind of a weird year for me, I feel like, as far as reading goes. Like, I definitely feel like it was a weird year for me for reading, and I feel like it was a weird year for publishing, because I don't think at this point a lot of the TikTok hyped romances or the things that are pushed in TikTok romances, I don't think those were really in effect in publishing at that point, you know. And again, this wasn't published then either. So I didn't feel like I was necessarily as jaded about certain things in romances that I later became in 2022 and 2023 and now, today. So the main reason I mention that is because the focus of this book is not entirely lust-based, but there is a huge portion of this, especially in the beginning and all throughout, that their romance is really largely based on their physical chemistry, their physical attraction, and their physical acts that they do. You know, when they first meet and the hero is starting to realize he has feelings for the heroine, his thoughts are very much distilled down to her beautiful body, like her bosom is mentioned quite a lot, and the fact that she makes great, delicious bread. So I'm like, why did I love this so much? Because that is basically a translation into historical romance for what I absolutely despise in contemporary romance today, where, you know, the hero focuses on her mouth and her breasts or whatever in a very crude sexual way. Like, I just can't handle that. It just drives me up a freaking wall. I hate it. It makes me just... It gives me the ick. It makes me think of that book differently from that point on. And that's unfortunately what happened here, you know? I still feel like this author is doing some really fun things with her writing voice, with her writing style. This book is charming from the get-go. You know, the basic premise, I don't even remember if I told you. So we have the heroine is Scottish and the hero is English, and he needs to come and claim his land from her Scottish father, basically. But in order to do that, he's worked out a deal with them that her Scottish father says, you have to compete in these Scottish games, these Scottish trials, and, you know, win, or I get to keep your land. So she, the heroine, Annie wants to marry a lord because she believes this spirit boy, you know, from the spirit realm that has been her friend, he has said to her that she has to marry a lord in order for him to come back because he's kind of disappeared a little bit. So there's a little bit of a magical element in that way. And so she works out a deal with the hero, who she calls English, that I will teach you how to win these Scottish games as long as you help me find a lord to marry. So from that point on, the hero thinks that the only thing she wants is a title, which I think is, you know, understandable where he's coming from and some of his history, but also if he knows her at all, he has to understand, like, this is not the type of girl who's just out for a title, right? So it's a very cute premise, and I think it's really well done. I really like how she introduces the characters in the first chapter. I like their first meeting. I think this book has a lot of levity and a lot of fun. I think the magical, mystical elements add a lot to it, and I do think there are some beautiful romantic moments in this book, for sure. I really, really do. But I will say that, you know, I originally gave this 5 stars, and I have to say I have to bump it down to a 4, and it's maybe even like a 3.5 and a 4, only because so much that is driving this couple together is the fact that he loves her cooking and he loves her body. And even there comes a point when they are not necessarily together, where they've been separated because, you know, they were kind of caught in a compromising position, and her father says, hey, you gotta go, you gotta get away from her. And he's mourning her, he's grieving her, he doesn't want to be separated from her, he's feeling that loss, you know? And so when he's talking with a friend about her, initially his thoughts go right back to, oh, that body and her bread that she makes, like, oh yeah. And I just sort of get annoyed at that, right? But by the time they have the end of their conversation, he's noticing other things about her, other things that he likes and that he misses about her, like her personality and things that she says and things that she does, just who she is. And, you know, that's what it has to be for me. It has to be more than that. Like, I love when a hero is like, oh, she's so beautiful, or her eyes, or her hair, or even if he is talking about her figure, but I don't like it when it's all about what he wants to do to her. Like, that's the thing that just drives me absolutely crazy. So, I'm kind of sad that I didn't enjoy this quite as much as I originally remember. It's still a fun romance. It's just not at all what I remember. And I feel like it's interesting because I think that, you know, my friend Jessen read and recommended this, and we were all kind of reading them at the same time. And I feel like maybe, and not necessarily that I was feeling like peer pressure, but maybe I bumped my rating up because I didn't want to be the only one who was like, oh, I don't absolutely love this, you know, because I don't absolutely love it. it doesn't have the things that I'm looking for in a historical romance. Like, right before I filmed this clip, I just sat down and filmed a video talking about my 5 and 6 star historical romance books that I've read so far this year. If you watch my channel, you'll have seen that. That'll be the video that came up right before this one. And, you know, when I'm talking, just sitting here right now, thinking about the making of a Highlander, and comparing that to the books that I've read this year that I've given 5 and 6 stars, like, there's no comparison. There's no comparison at all. So I feel like this is more of a 4-star for sure. It's definitely not higher than a 4-star. It's still good. It's still good. But it was disappointing, and I hate coming back to a reread and feeling like, oh, I don't like this as much, you know? And that makes me so sad because I've always really enjoyed this author. So now I'm really curious to go into the last book in the series, which I haven't read yet. I just got the audio as soon as it came out. I've read books 1, 2, and 3, or 4. Are there 4? Is there 5 in the series? I don't remember. 1, 2, 3. I think there are 3 that I've read, and there's 1 that I haven't. However many books in this series there are, I haven't read the last one. So, all right, now let's go ahead and talk about The Wraith King. Okay, The Wraith King by Juliette Cross. So first of all, I did a beta read of this for Juliette early on, and from that beta read, she made massive changes to the fantasy world and the overall story. The bones of the relationship in here are the same, and there are some scenes that I remember that are the same from when I first originally read this, but there's also a lot of this that she changed, and I just have to say, this is one of the best fantasy romances that I have read in a really, really long time. This is a 6-star fantasy romance for me. I love this book so much. This is everything that I am looking for in a fantasy romance. Juliette has created a very rich, imagined fantasy world, so I'm not going to go into depth into the plot. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the plot because this book doesn't come out until, I think, September 24th, and I don't want to spoil anything at all, and I'm going to just talk to you about how I feel about the romance. So, it has a very rich fantasy world, fully contained. You know, this is a world that she has developed, and she has taken a lot of care and a lot of time to build this fantasy world. And it is fully realized. It makes sense. Everything in it works. I think the magic system in here, you know, magic system is basically just, if you don't know, if you do, I'm just speaking to the choir. It's basically how the magical elements of the book work, you know? So sometimes that's something that has like a system and it has very solid rules. Sometimes it can be a little hazy, but it still makes sense. It still makes sense in the characters. So it's never like they're just pulling magic out of thin air. Like in the sense of the world, the magic in this world makes sense and everything that it creates makes sense. So in this world we have dark fae, demon fae, shadow fae, and we have moon fae. And our heroine was captured by the dark fae, the wraith fae, and imprisoned. And that is where she first meets Gal, our hero. So we have Una and Gal, our hero and heroine. And they meet in the prison, basically, when she is essentially being pulled down by these wights. And he sees this, and that is what the catalyst that moves the story forward from there. So I don't want to spoil too much of this book, but I will say there's an element to this of like fated mates. There's an element of this that is like almost star-crossed lovers meant to be. There is, I would say this hero is for sure an alpha mellow, and Juliette Cross writes some of the most beautiful alpha mellows that I have ever read in my life. And I would also say that this takes a little bit of an antagonistic to lovers. And I think you could call this enemies to lovers too, for sure. And it's just so beautiful because this has what I'm talking about in the previous book that I felt like was lacking. When the hero is thinking about the heroine, when he thinks about her and how she looks, there is always an element of attraction there, but the way that he thinks about her is almost like a way of reverence. Like, he imagines her eyes, how beautiful they are. He thinks about the curve of her neck. He thinks about her hair. Like, he's just thinking about how beautiful that she is and how much he desires her, but it's almost in a very reverent way, and I love that so much. So this whole book just fulfilled every single thing that I wanted in a fantasy romance. I felt like everything about this book was sort of exactly what I'm looking for. A very richly imagined fantasy world. Even though we use terms like fae, it still feels like fresh and unique. And this romance is one that I think I would like die for, the way that these two fell in love and were so devoted to each other, so protective of each other. Like, this man is so protective of her, and it's so beautiful, you guys. So I absolutely loved it. I was really curious to see what had changed from the beta read, and I have to say that I loved the beta read, but I love this one even more, the finished version, and this is a 6-star fantasy romance for me, and I think y'all definitely need to read it. So, alright my friends, that's it. That's all I have to say for this vlog. Thank you so much for being here and for coming along on this journey with me. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and if you have made it this far, please feel free to leave me a sun emoji, and I'll see y'all in my next video.